Every morning, it was the same sentence in his head. You should be ashamed of yourself. Not from other people, from his own mind. If you've ever felt haunted by past mistakes, replaying what you did and secretly believing you don't deserve happiness, this story is for you. For years, Mark carried his past like a heavy backpack he never took off. On the outside, he functioned. He went to work, smiled when he needed to, and made small talk. But on the inside, he lived in a courtroom where he was the judge, the jury, and the only one ever found guilty. His case file was long. There was the friend he betrayed because he chose pride instead of honesty. There was the relationship he ruined with lies and anger. There were opportunities he wasted, decisions he made while numb or selfish, words he threw like knives when he was hurting. Some things he did were clearly wrong, he knew that. Others were just unwise choices made from pain or immaturity. But his mind treated them all the same, unforgivable. Whenever something good happened, a compliment, a chance, a small success, his inner voice whispered, if they knew who you really are, they'd walk away. So he kept punishing himself, as if feeling bad forever was the only way to pay for what he'd done. At night, when the world got quiet, the past got loud. His brain replayed scenes like a cruel highlight reel, the look on someone's face when he hurt them, the moment he made a selfish choice he couldn't undo, the time he ignored a chance to do the right thing. He tried to distract himself with scrolling, shows, noise, but the shame always caught up. He thought beating himself up meant taking responsibility. He believed that if he ever forgave himself, it would mean he didn't care or was excusing his behavior. So he held on to guilt as if it was the last piece of morality he had left. One day, after another long night of mental punishment, he came across an article about forgiving yourself. It said something that stopped him. Forgiving yourself is not saying, it didn't matter. It's saying, it mattered. I learned and I'm no longer going to live chained to it. It talked about specific steps, naming what you did, taking responsibility, repairing what you can, learning the lessons, and then choosing to release the constant self-attack so you can actually live differently. It also said something he had never considered. You are worthy of your own forgiveness, just as much as anyone else. He read that line 3 times, feeling anger and hope collide in his chest. At first he resisted. You don't understand what I've done, he argued in his head. Other people deserve forgiveness. Not me, but another part of him whispered. How long are you going to keep living like this? He realized that his shame wasn't making him a better person. It was keeping him stuck in the same identity, the one who ruined everything. He remembered a simple truth. Holding on to regret doesn't change the past. It only blinds you to the lessons and opportunities in front of you now. Regret was supposed to be a teacher, not a prison guard. He had let it become both. So he did something brave. Instead of running from his past, he sat down with it. He took a notebook and followed a step he read. Name what you have done. He wrote, in detail, the key situations that still haunted him and his own actions. No excuses, no blaming others, just honest ownership. It was painful. His chest felt tight, his eyes burned, and at one point he almost tore the pages out. But he kept going. Seeing his mistakes on paper was terrifying and freeing at the same time. Terrifying because he could no longer hide. Freeing because they were now specific events, not some giant, shapeless monster called, I'm a terrible person. From there, he asked a hard question for each situation. What can I still do about this? In some cases, there were people he could apologize to. Not to erase the past, but to acknowledge it honestly. He learned what a sincere apology really meant, admitting he was wrong, acknowledging the hurt he caused, saying he was sorry without excuses, and trying his best not to repeat the behavior. In a few cases, he reached out. Some people responded with grace. Others needed distance. One person never replied. Each outcome stung, but taking responsibility, instead of hiding and hating himself in silence, gave him something he hadn't felt in a long time. Integrity. Of course, not everything could be fixed. Some people were gone. Some damage was permanent. This used to be his reason to keep punishing himself. But he read something that reframed it. Self-forgiveness is not about undoing the past. It's about changing how you relate to it so it can stop controlling your present. You accept that, yes, you made mistakes, sometimes serious ones. You accept that some consequences will always exist. And you also accept that continuing to hate yourself will not heal anyone, including the people you hurt. The only way to truly honor those mistakes is to let them transform you, not destroy you. He began practicing a new internal language. Whenever his mind started its usual script, "You're a failure, you don't deserve good things," he challenged it. He would say, "Yes, I did wrong there, I own that. But I am also someone who is learning, changing, and trying to do better. I am more than that one version of me." At first, this felt fake, like reading lines from a script he didn't believe. But he kept going because the old script hadn't helped him either. Slowly, the voice of constant condemnation got quieter. Not gone, but quieter. He also started asking one powerful question about each painful memory. What did this teach me? Instead of only seeing the shame, he looked for the hidden diamonds in those stones. He had been carrying lessons about honesty, boundaries, empathy, and what kind of person he never wanted to be again. He realized that some of his deepest compassion for others came from knowing what it felt like to mess up and hate yourself. His past mistakes hadn't made him worthless. They had made him more awake. Over time, he built new habits around self-forgiveness. When regret showed up, he didn't push it away or drown in it. He walked it through a process, name what happened, own his part, ask what he can do now, learn the lesson, and then consciously release the need to keep repunishing himself. Sometimes that release looked like taking a deep breath and saying, "I forgive you," to the person in the mirror. Sometimes it looked like choosing not to spiral for hours over a thought he'd already worked through. Bit by bit, his nervous system relaxed. The backpack of guilt got lighter. The past stopped feeling like a life sentence and started feeling like a tough teacher he had finally graduated from. One day, walking outside, he realized something had changed. The usual background noise in his mind, "You're horrible, remember what you did," wasn't there. Not because he had forgotten his past, but because he had finally integrated it. He could think about his mistakes without collapsing into shame. He could talk about them with safe people without feeling like he was confessing as a criminal. He saw himself as flawed but precious. Someone who had done wrong, yes, but who was no longer defined by those moments. If you re-listening to this and your past feels like a weight you can drop, hear this clearly. You are not your worst decision. You are not the sum of your mistakes. You are the person who is still here, still capable of choosing differently. You cannot change what you did, but you can change what you do next. Start where Mark started. Write down what actually happened. Own your part. Repair where you can. Learn everything you can from the pain. Then make a conscious decision to stop stabbing yourself with the same memory every day. That's not justice, that's self-harm. This story comes from Willpower Stories, a channel for people who are tired of being prisoners of their past and are finally ready to forgive themselves and move forward. Here, you'll hear powerful motivational stories about regret, self-forgiveness, second chances, and real transformation. If you're ready to go from hating yourself for old mistakes to finally letting go and freeing your future, subscribe to Willpower Stories, turn on notifications, and let every new story remind you that you are worthy of your own forgiveness.